All right, so the purpose of this sewing is to sew down the batting. So let's put this under here. Make sure I have it where it needs to go. I think that's plenty because I know that's, and we'll go ahead and sew that. I hope. Alright, it's not sewing anything because I don't have my hoop attached. This is stupidity personified today. Alright, I know that's going to be a problem because I've already seen it happen once. And so I'm just going to cut this away here. When it gets sews up close to this edge, which it will, that tends to catch that. All right, so I don't want this thread over here. Let's start this whole thing over here. All right, now hoops attached. Let's try to put the batting back in it. Put the batting at the edge because it's not going to go beyond that anyway. And actually I think I want to put this down with black thread just so that I can see it. Nobody's going to see these threads. They're all going to be covered up by other fabrics and other threads. So when I digitized the design, I made the first one black. That was the outline of the fabric, and then the brown was the outline of the batting. And then I've gone through and changed this. I'm sewing all the batting down first. It shows as a brown thread in the design, but it can be any color you want. I just pick colors for things like that, colors that aren't usually not in the design itself. Okay, lower pressure foot. Maybe I should go back to bed and start the day over. I am sorely tempted. Sounds like a good idea. It's not going to happen. Okay. Gee, that's a small chalice. Yeah, but I missed something here because I only sewed half of this cloud. So there's let's sew this one. This is the black line, but this batting is so thin, I probably could have left it. Okay. Let me see if there's another brown there somewhere. I bet it was the very last color. Nope. Doesn't seem to be. Alright, so see, it shows as being a complete circle, but it didn't sew that. I have had some problems with the program recently that it wants to do an update, but I can't do the update because whenever it does an update, I lose something, and I don't want to lose anything. So what happens is, it's probably one of the things they fix, but every once in a while when I go in and edit something, like I change those browns around, it deletes them. instead of changing them, it deletes them. Don't know why. It still shows up in the design, though it often shows up differently than was originally. For example, if it was a fill, it might show up as a line, just an outline. All right. Now, I want to come in and cut in a lot closer. And this chalice here. Now, I could probably put another layer of batting to make this even higher. Will it puff enough without that? I wonder what would have happened if I had put puffy foam down instead of batting. Well, we'll know some other time, not now. All right, so that's the batting. Now the next color that it wants is the cloud. So that's the silver. I'm going to be using this silver here. And again, I'm going to do it with the black thread. And I don't have my hoop attached again. This is not me. This is not the way I do think maybe going back to bed would be the best option at this point. All right, so is this down? Yes, let's do this. Puffy enough there, I think. Okay, so again, I have to take the hoop off, cut off threads. Okay, scissors. And so just holding this up. I hope this is recording. I don't really want to do this again. In fact, I probably won't. All right, so now we have the cloud down. And the next color is the cloud. It's the satin stitch around the cloud and the lines that go into it. So that gets done in a dark gray. So. And again, hook up the hoop. Almost didn't do it again. Except that I saw where the needle was. Okay. And start. Now I should do the lines in the cloud first with the satin stitch around the edge last, I think. This is why sometimes I didn't care much where those, sometimes I ran those lines under the chalice, and sometimes I ran them in the edge like what it's doing right now, because I knew they would be covered up either by the gold fabric or by the satin stitch. Here at the bottom of the cloud there's also a gold border, so I pulled the edge in a little, the satin stitch for the cloud in a little bit because of that border. So that's why it doesn't look like it's totally covering the cloud there, but that it will get covered by the other satin stitch, the part that isn't getting covered now. Now some of these pieces here that stick out, those all have to trim off. I didn't cut in close enough. Okay. I'm just going to leave that gray thread in it because the next one is the outline for the chalice. And I'm going to use this piece here. I need a large piece for the border, so I'll just do this piece right here. Looks like the chalice comes all the way down to there. Okay. Take it off again and cut away all this gold fabric. And I'm going to be careful not to cut the silver that's already done underneath it. Okay, I'll just do a general cut and then come back and cut close. Applique scissors are nice because they are intended for things like that. This, you hold it up out of the way and cut right at the edge. They come in very handy doing like a lining, but they're really intended for things like this. Okay, so didn't realize this chalice was on the computer. Everything was large. Didn't realize this chalice was this small. I'm gonna have to get some small scissors to cut in some of these areas here. See if I can find a sharp.
This was the day when I thought I really shouldn't have gotten out of bed, or at least have gone back to bed and started over. I forgot to, every time I turned the camera off, I thought I was turning it on, and every time I turned it on, I turned it off. So I filmed a lot of in-between stuff, but not actual embroidery after the first clip. So I'll explain to you what was going on here. I'll show you some of the pictures at least to give you an idea where I was in it. You're going to do pretty much the same thing. I had sewed down the chalice, and then it would sew on top of that the design lines, and then it would move up. Would do the same thing up with the. It would do the same thing up with the host. So I would put the. I'm listening to myself in the background on the video, and it's distracting me. Anyway, I put the silver fabric on the host, let it sew around it, cut off the excess, then it embroidered the cross and did around the edge. Then the next picture you see here is I was putting the gold down to do the embroidery around the edge, and I wanted that fabric to be gold fabric, the same as the chalice. So it did the sew line, but I didn't want the puffiness under it. So I just put down the fabric, let it sew the guidelines around, cut away the fabric, both the inside of it and the outside of it. And then the next picture you see is it's sewing down the embroidery around the edges so that it has a nice border. And it actually, the outside border was very nice because it was extra wide, but you couldn't really do that with any of the things inside. They were too small. So then after it had the border down, then of course it sewed the letters, and I did them in a deep burgundy, deeper than the red of the background, so they would show off well, and they did come out very nicely. So so once the letters were done, then it was simply a matter of putting the rays in. Now, I had digitized the rays just so I would have a guideline, and also it could sew around it, and I could leave them there just as that. But again, this customer wanted beading on it, and by putting the rays in, I had something as a guideline for the beads. And the finished, here you see the finished design, and as it comes from the sewing machine. The pictures at the end are of actually with the beads on. The way I did the beads, because I'm half blind, is I threaded a beading needle with thread, brought it up at the beginning of the line, put on however many beads it took to cover the line from top to bottom without doing any stitching. Then I brought the needle in at the bottom of the line, took a stitch in the back to secure it, and moved on to the next ray. Once all the rays were done, I tried to go back and I did some couching to hold the line down in between beads, but it really made the lines crooked. So I took out the couching threads and took some Beacons Fabri-Tac and a pin, a very small amount of Beacons on a pin, and ran it under the beads along that guideline and then pushed the beads down into it, and that held them nice and straight, and they're not going anywhere. And so I did that with all of the rays, and they came out, the design came out looking pretty decent, and the customer said that they're happy with it. So now I get to put it down and do the vestment. I may or may not photograph that. You've seen me make enough vestments, and it's not really a big problem vestment, but I may show you some pictures. I'm not going through the whole thing because you've seen that enough times. But I may show you some the embroidery and how I put the embroideries down. So you have that to look forward to. All right. Thank you. I know this was short. I'm sorry it would have been a whole lot longer if I'd been able to film everything. But I think you got the gist of it in that first part that actually did come out. And as I say, this is the day I should have gone back to bed and started all over again because nothing has been going right today. Is today a feast of Our Lady? Because that usually happens on her feast days. Okay, bye.